We're very honored to have with us from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. Congressman, an honor to have you with us today.
Todd, good to be back on. Please just call me Guy. And I gotta say, you are the conservative blowtorch. Always good to be on with you, my friend.
Well, thank you, sir. And the controversy of the cookies aside there at the White House, we got a lot of really important things to talk about in this country. Not the least of which is what's happening with this filing that John Durham made over the weekend. I want to get your reaction to the allegations listed in that filing.
So I've got a lot of thoughts on these filings. First and foremost, the filings, as your listeners know, shows that the Hillary Clinton campaign was actually spying on Donald Trump. They were fabricating connections between Trump and Russia. And then their advisor at the time, Jake Sullivan, currently the National Security Advisor, they were going to the FBI, getting the FBI to then do an investigation and once again spy on the Trump campaign under this pretext there was coordination and collusion with Russia, which they in turn hacked Trump's emails to create the appearance of collusion. I mean, this is bigger than Watergate ever was, and I'm not downplaying Watergate. This should be a huge story that's played wall to wall on the media, yet you're hearing nothing about it on MSNBC, CNN, the rest of the legacy media. It's just shocking on so many levels, not just the act of spying, but also the act of making false reports to the FBI, weaponizing the DOJ against the presidential campaign, and then the lack of coverage by the media. It is shocking.
And I've heard from people that they're being blocked, or at least their stories are being marginalized on social media when they're trying to share the reporting of folks like Fox News and Newsmax and our website. That is troubling because they are forcing a false narrative down the throats of the American people, and that's a big problem in my estimation.
It's a huge problem. Social media, big tech, the Democrat National Party, they've done this before. They did it with the Hunter Biden story. That's when I was shadow banned, when I was sharing information about the Hunter Biden story with a laptop, et cetera. Big tech cracked down on that story, which turned out to be true, by the way. And they're doing that with this story now, from my understanding. That's why, just as an aside, we've got to break up big tech. We've got to strip away their liabilities. We've got to make them open to lawsuits. And we've got to give people a privacy right in their search history. We've got to do something to hold these big tech tyrants accountable.
Do you believe that we're going to be able to not just get to the bottom of it, which I think John Durham is? I want to know who's going to pay the price here.
There should be prosecutions. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you can't just go to the FBI. First off, let's think about what happened. You had members of the Clinton campaign hacking in to servers of President Donald Trump. That is troubling in and of itself. Then when they created through the hack, and by the way, it was a big tech executive that did this, talking about big tech. The guy that did this was a big tech tyrant himself. So big tech goes in, or at least an agent in big tech, creates these emails that show this false collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. And then they go and give the information to the FBI as if it were true. That in itself is a false report right there to the FBI. And then to sit by silently for 3 years as the Trump administration was undermined and roadblocked at every turn under this ghost of Russian collusion that never happened, that was fabricated by the Clinton campaign, it's shameful. It's unpatriotic. The fact that the DOJ, the FBI, and the Clinton campaign coordinated to some level and hamstring the Trump administration for 3 years. Think about how great, how much, even better the administration would have been under Trump had he not had this hanging over his head the whole time.
And that is a great point you're making here. I think that we would be dealing with a second term of the Trump White House right now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, had none of this happened.
Well, hey, we might get a second term of President Trump anyhow.
Well,
America loves a comeback story, and this clearly gives fuel to a campaign if he decides to launch it, to show that he was interfered with. It was really ironic. You remember, I was on your show talking about impeachment. I was on the Judiciary Committee during impeachment. President Trump actually got impeached for things that Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden did. the hacking into the emails, the collusion, President Biden telling the Ukrainian president that if they didn't back off an oil and gas company that Hunter was on, there'd be a quid pro quo and they wouldn't get any foreign aid. It's despicable and troubling that the Democrats hounded President Trump for actions that they themselves were doing simultaneously while going after the sitting president.
Oh, and again, you talk about those things. I mean, those are the true scandals that they simply refuse to address, especially when you had U.S. diplomats warning about those Hunter Biden deals as early as 2016, if I remember those classified emails that came out. So, I hope that the Republicans are able to retake Congress. I'm pretty confident about the House, the Senate. I don't know. But I do hope that if that happens, that the Republicans are going to hold people accountable.
We will. The name of the game is going to be oversight, oversight, oversight. When we retake the House, we are going to force the legacy media to cover these stories because we're going to make so much noise about Hunter Biden, about the corruption of the Biden family, about how Hillary Clinton, big tech, coordinated on this as well. And Todd, if I could just make one final point. If they, being the Democratic Party, the DOJ, the FBI, big tech, if the powers can do this to a man who is running for president and became the president of the United States, what do you think they can do to the average Joe citizen? Because if you don't think that they're using their powers to go after people selectively, sitting politicians, individuals, think again. Because if they can do this to President Trump, they can do this to any one of us.
Congressman, before we let you go, a bit of breaking news. About 10 minutes ago, Sky News reporting that the U.S. is closing its embassy in Kiev, relocating diplomatic operations to western Ukraine. We also got word, I'm sure this is a coincidence, that they are moving the press briefing. They're delaying it by an hour. What are you hearing? And it just seems to me that something is just off about all of this.
It's very troubling. Some of the information I got makes it seem like there is going to be an invasion, which is very sad. But moving diplomats might be the prudent thing to do. But the Biden administration and our NATO allies should be doing more to make it very clear to Putin that there will be a price to pay, and not to do it in retrospect once he's already invaded. We should be calling for the sanctions right now. We should be moving forces, and we should be supplying the Ukrainians to an even greater extent than we are. We should be doing that now to prevent an invasion. Everything Biden does is very reactionary. Him leading from behind is not helping anybody. And the weakness and the vacillation that we saw in Afghanistan, don't fool yourself. That weakness and vacillation is what's inviting Putin to think that he can move on the democratic state of Ukraine. And it's certainly what is tempting China, communist China, to try to move on the free and independent nation, another democracy, Taiwan.
All right, Congressman, we're going to have to leave it there. Great stuff, and good to have you back on the show. We got to get you back on a regular basis.